Hey there, BookTube. It is your close friend and trusted confidant, Buck, coming back to you with another episode of Buck's Books. And today I want to talk to you about a pretty little ditty I just finished. Well, I finished it a while ago, but I'm finally getting around to reviewing it. It's called The Fisherman by John Langan. The way this came by my desk in the first place is I actually had it recommended as a comp for a book that I'm currently querying. So I figured before I put this in front of an agent and try to convince them it's like this book, I should make sure that this book is good. And so I read the book. It's not my normal pick. Like, I wouldn't go out of my way to read The Fisherman if I hadn't accidentally read The Fisherman, but I'm glad that I did, because it is a good book. It starts with just like this old codger telling you about the spots that he likes to fish at and stuff like that. And then his fishing buddy from work, and then he talks about all of the dead people that they both know, the loss of his wife, and then the guy and his great tragedy in his life, and so they become best fishing pals, and then they wind up going to a spooky fishing hole, like a Hobbs End sort of deal from the Mouth of Madness, in the Mouth of Madness. And everyone tells him, oh, you can't be go wandering in them woods up yonder. That's how you're going to get got by old Appalachian spirits. You know the draw. But he decides that he knows better, and they go up. And then our man just segues into a completely different story. And the different story is about an evil wizard. It doesn't directly call him an evil wizard, but he is an evil wizard who winds up sort of annexing a house from Ebenezer Scrooge, at which point he sets up some, begins to execute his own little dark designs in this nearby incredibly haunted fishing hole. And that story that just came out of nowhere a quarter of the way in the book then proceeds to run little more than half the remaining, about to 80% of the book. So it's not the story you signed up for. It's not the character that you're used to. It's just like this third-hand narrative that you receive about the history of this town in Rhode Island. Because, I don't know if it's actually Rhode Island, but by virtue of being Lovecraftian, they're all Rhode Island. So this little New England port town, probably not a port either. Just bear with me here. But all of just like the local folklore of this particular town and how incredibly haunted it is, but no one ever says haunted. And then the happenings begin, right? There's all sorts of paranormal activities where everyone's just seeing their dead loved ones, only they have gross goldfish eyes. And it's immediately clear that it's a monkey's paw situation. Like, these gross dead loved ones are not actually the loved ones. They just sort of inhabit the form in something else, but it doesn't define what else is driving them, which, that's what makes a good scary story. As soon as you know what's going on, it's not scary anymore. Knowledge necessarily diffuses horror in everything. Forewarned is forearmed and all that. So, a lot of that going on in the town. The town is like a bunch of it's like a boomtown situation. Everyone there is incredibly poor, and I think they're mostly refugees of some kind, or like recent, like I said, it's been like 2 months since I finished this book, something like. But I think they were either refugees or like fresh immigrants, like they just landed and they don't speak the language yet, and they're just kind of getting situated in this little shanty town. And that's when we have all sorts of hauntings and spookings, and from there, the narrative evolves into talking about the designs of the wizard himself and his ultimate goal. And I'm gonna ruin the book. If you don't want the book ruined for you, I didn't say anything that would ruin it so far. You know, you can still enjoy. I'm going to ruin it right now. So if you want to read this book and don't want it ruined, if you're on the hook, so to speak, then I encourage you to stop the video now. Maybe go look at another video. I got so many. I got like 50 something videos. Just pick another video. Here we go. So what the wizard is doing is he's trying to catch the biblical Leviathan. So there's this whole spiel about how when God created everything, prior to the creation of everything, he created the firmament, right? So these were like the primordial waters from which creation developed. This was like immediately post-word, but pre-separation of light and dark. In the wizard's understanding, the creatures that are swimming around in those primordial god waters are the closest you can get to breaking off a piece of the divine itself. Like, he's trying to hack his way into, because he's trying to biohack his way into being a demiurge, right? So his best bet on how to do this, what he's decided he's going to do, is try to catch the Leviathan. So you thought the fisherman was the guy in the story who was telling the story briefly in the beginning of the story, but actually the fisherman is Der Fischer, who is German. It's just German for the fisherman, and he's trying to catch. I think they like hinted at Leviathan. I think they might have called him Leviathan, but like only as a shorthand, because he's not actually like Leviathan as mentioned in the Bible, because that's probably just like a whale or a hippopotamus. No, the behemoth was a hippopotamus, I think. I digress. Either way, it's a placeholder, it's a concept of this world serpent, you know, this Yig, this Jormungandr world serpent situation, right? Like the one that the coils are around everything, and that's his deal. That's what he's trying to catch, and he's trying to do it with the heavily enchanted magic ropes and cows of some kind, but it's implied that they're divine cows. They're like no cows anyone's ever seen. So conceptually, like when he talks about the black waters of oblivion, you know, and what he's fishing for, I myself have had dreams, I'm sure most of us have, of something conceptually similar, right? Just because it's representative of the unknown, and not just the unknown, but what came before. And I think this is sort of maybe just one of those ancestral memories, you know, that comes to like the fear of the ocean. Well, what if there was another ocean greater than even the ocean that we know of? This is like the hominid fear of the dark water. I think it digs into something old and goes right down to the bone. And at that level, it worked. But it worked in a way that it was kind of goofy on top of it. And that's the thing. Like, it was, if I'm being honest, it was kind of a tough read because it was so dense, which suggests to me that I have to refine the sort of momentum in my own work. But it was also compelling because you wanted to know what happened next. You wanted to see where this was going. And I think it was communicated very well, and the horror scenes were. But even on top of that, it just came off as sort of silly. And I think silly is something you're going to wind up when horror is described, because that's part of the obscenity of it. You know, when you see something that's actually horrifying in the traditional sense of the word, it's because it is so abjectly wrong that one of the default responses would be just uncomfortable laughter. But it's a good book. I'm glad that I read it. and I would recommend that you read it if you care about any of the things that I just said. It is Lovecraftian in tone, but not Lovecraftian in the traditional sense where there's tentacle monsters and weird cults. There are weird cults and the monster probably has tentacles, but it's really understated. That's not what we're here for. It's Lovecraftian in theme, but you would have to be pretty ambitious to try to squeeze it into the mythos. Alright, that's enough out of me for tonight. It's almost the end of the year, and I got another review to do if I want to make my 100 books for the year. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. If you leave a comment, that really helps the engagement with the algorithm, which gets more eyes on this, which means I can do more videos, more people recommend me, more books to read, greater audience engagement. We have a cute little back and forth thing going on. Can really have fun with it. All right, talk to you soon.